where were you at in your life the day/night that we met?
Yeah. Oh my God, it was like Tumblr days. We were kids,
Yeah, we were 17. We were
you
kind of
know?
stupid. We hadn't graduated high school yet.
Yeah.
Our lives was go to school, come back, be on Tumblr, go to sleep, repeat.
Yeah.
Like I would come over, you would come over. Walking around Ajman, basically walking around like Sharjah, Corniche, doing little
Yeah.
picnics on the beach.
We did each other's makeup a lot.
A lot. We were big nerds and we did the whole Comic-Con thing. I think that was like the main thing that like kickstarted.
Exactly, 100%. Yeah.
We were like, do you want to go to Comic-Con together? Like we'll do makeup. I'm like, oh my.
We'll do a test makeup session as
We
well.
did a test makeup session and we had the wigs and everything. What else did we do?
Beach. We really
We went to the
bonded.
beach a lot. That was that one summer. We kept going to Mamza every like Monday, Wednesday.
Yeah. Our parents like traveled as well, so we were alone with cars finally.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Cars were like a shifting, like a changing point.
Yeah.
Definitely.
It's like a tag.
Yeah. And then when you moved to the dorms was when I would come like almost every Thursday night. I think like pick you up and then we go do like whatever. Yeah. So I guess that's how our friendship developed. Like we were two young girls with a lot in common, and we were into like
the same shit
and clothes, and we're both like kind of
quirky.
I was like trying to avoid the word.
No, don't escape reality.
Yeah, we were like shui, like two basic ass bitches who found each other.
I swear.
I don't know. Yeah, and then we just stuck, and we both I think had significant amount of glowing up.
Character development.
A lot of character development. So what's something that brought a smile to your face this week?
Definitely videos of you in the snow. It was really cute.
Aww. This week I went to the US and I saw my grandma and I saw my mom for the first time in a long time. So that was nice and it made me happy.
Yeah, I can imagine. Since we both grew up completely or largely in the UAE, how do the places or the people here reinforce our identity or, on the contrary, separate us from it?
So I grew up partly in the US. I moved here when I was 10. So the last 15 years of my life have been here. My formative years have been spent here, basically. Yeah. But I can still kind of remember what it was like to be Arab, Muslim, Palestinian, etc. in the US versus what it meant to be all of those things growing up here. Over there, there's the fact that you're so alienated. People want to prove their identities and make their identities very well known. And having lived here and looking back at that, it feels a little bit like a reaction and like people always had something to prove. Not because they weren't comfortable in their identities, but because their identities were, I guess, always brought into question. Being here, obviously you grow up around Arabs, you grow up around Muslims, so neither of those things are brought into question. But maybe as you grow up and as you become more aware of things, being a Palestinian is, you start to notice like the animosity. Yeah, I don't know. I feel very comfortable in my like identity, and I feel like a lot of Palestinians here do as well. There isn't this reaction where it's like you're trying to prove something, or I mean there is obviously from some people. It's like there's this kind of apologetic approach to like being who you are, and it has a lot to do with like respectability politics and always trying to, no, Palestinians aren't like this, we're actually like very civilized and whatever. Yeah. So you definitely see that.
I actually wanted to ask you, did you ever feel like that when you were there though?
Like I moved here when I was 10. And so I don't think I Yani being there was less about like, oh, I'm Palestinian, I'm not like everyone else around me. It was more like, oh, like I'm Arab Muslim, like in general. And again, it wasn't like I felt super different because like we were always, all our friends were Arabs. I went to like a Muslim school. It was very sheltered. I was always interacting with those types of people anyway. It was everything that I knew. But the reason I brought it up earlier is because I guess I can, growing up, I see the difference with like between what the situation is like for diaspora here versus like some of my family in the US and what the diaspora experience is like over there. And I think it's two vastly different experiences.
Growing up here, there was always this like sense of pride that was reciprocated as well within the communities of different other Arabs in the UAE, that like, oh, I'm Palestinian, and like, you know, we studied about it in school and all of that. So there was always this thing of, yeah, like, you know, there are Palestinians among us and it's chill. And Aslan, if anything, there's a lot of respect towards them, all of that. In terms of feeling like separated and stuff, because I grew up with a lot of, I was blessed enough that my family wasn't, my immediate family wasn't the only one in the UAE. And alhamdulillah, I was able to have an environment to grow up in, surrounded by Palestinians and Syrians. And it was really nice. I completely identify as both. Akid not the same as the people who live there because it's a completely different experience, but I'm Syrian, I'm Palestinian, like it's nothing more or less than that. I do feel, extremely separated, and definitely more recently than ever, from like the Emirati community. And there's a big difference, regardless of the fact that I was born and raised here, regardless of the experiences that I had that may relate me to them. I don't really feel the connection,
And I feel like the disconnect has just become stronger, obviously, in very recent history. It's like, you're kind of submerged into it, but there's no. And I feel like maybe what you're talking about is something that's like uniquely about being Palestinian here, just because of everything that's been going on recently. So we've known each other since we were teenagers, and now we are in our mid-20s. What's something you're proud of me for? And then I'll speak about something I'm proud of you for.
Okay. For me, it's something that I've always told you. There's many things, obviously. I think the nicest thing is your will to be happy, like just how much you want to be happy. It just makes me so happy. I don't know how to explain it. Your ability to not give a shit. I love that, about things that you shouldn't give a shit about. And also the range you went from. No.
Going back.
No. One last one, just one last one. When we first met, your anxiety was a lot more like there than it is now. Like you have definitely gotten so much better for sure at like how you manage it, and it's very empowering.
Oh
no, don't cry. I'm trying not to cry.
I was like, I'm not gonna cry. Like this is gonna be whatever. It's just been such a. I don't want to get like all sappy, but like it's just such a blessing to have a friend for this long and really like experience their growth and go through that with them and really just watch them like, sorry for all the cliches, but just watch them.
No.
And I feel like that's just like such the perfect metaphor for like what's happened to you is just like this flower. The insane glow up and amount of success and everything that you've been doing and how you keep like chasing after what you want to do. And there's all that, like that entire aspect to it, but just at a fundamental level, seeing you become the person you've become and learn to like put your foot down when you don't want to do something, just watching you learn to like love yourself more and stick up for yourself more, not take shit from anyone. It's like so amazing to see because it's like something that as your friend, like, I want for you so badly, and it's like, you got it. You know what I mean? Okay, I'll stop before I
Oh, that's so nice. Thank you. What do you want most for one another? I mean, this relates to what I said earlier, like happiness for sure. I know it's a very short word, like very small word for the weight that it carries. And I feel like this is the kind of thing maybe like we understand more in certain situations.
Oh,
You
I know
know.
exactly what you mean, because obviously I want the same thing for you as well. I just want you to be happy, and I want you to be stress-free. And I guess, you know, that comes with the happiness. You've already proven that you're very capable of achieving what you want and achieving your dreams and just achieving so much. But like, one thing I want for you is to know that if you have something in mind, there's nothing stopping you from like getting there. I want you to not have any self-doubt, because I think as your friend and the people closest to you will say this as well, like, none of us have the slightest doubt in you at all. And so I want you to have that for yourself as well.
Wow. I did not like yeah, no, I did not like expect that at all. That was very nice. Thank you. I love you.
I love you. Happy Valentine's Day, by the way.
Happy Valentine's. Yeah. Happy Valentine's. We're crying together. But happy cry.
Happy cry.
Okay, this is an easier question.
In what ways have family shaped your ideas around love and intimacy? That's a good one. I think, I mean, I'll speak from a personal experience, and I think this is something maybe every Arab girl kind of relates to on some level, is our parents have very unique ways of showing us that they love us. And it took me a long time to understand that it was love, and that it wasn't just like that they needed to act the way that, like, you know, parents or family act on TV or whatever in order for them to love me. Everyone has like a special way of showing you that they love you. That's kind of what I've learned from my family, is that there's no one way. There's no specific words that you have to say. It's everyone has their own unique way of showing love, and it took me a long time to pick that up. I think the result of that was when I learned to notice it, and when I learned to like recognize it, like, oh, this is love. It's kind of made me like a really sappy, emotional person, because I didn't realize it for so long, and then suddenly you kind of start like seeing it in places. And I think a lot of that has to do with like growing up and not being like an angsty, like dumb teenager anymore.
Yeah. It's called mid-20s.
It's called being in your mid-20s. Again, it's not like they taught it to me directly. It's not like it's like a lesson that I learned from them. It's just like you know, it's a result of growing up and being surrounded by them.
For me, I mean, what you said, copy paste, like 100% for me. It's the same thing, you know, when you're a teenager and you're spoiled, it's so easy to want to be like the kids on TV and like hate your parents. Like you said, they have their weird way of doing that. Some of these ways will restrict you from doing things, but my idea of love was shaped because of my family is in the two like realms of material and like, you know, sentimental. So like there's a lot of personal sacrifice to like your wants and your needs and stuff. And also there's a lot of material stuff to it. Very like indulging, maybe that's like the way to describe it. And it's nice. And like I appreciate it a lot. And it's really something that I'm very grateful for, and I'm always terrified of losing, of course. So I think that answers that question for me. Okay. Let's see, what, if any? are the disconnects between you and your elders around love and intimacy?
Many.
Yeah.
I'm always kind of ignoring the fact that I feel like their love is very much conditional. It doesn't bother me as much as it used to. I'm lucky that I kind of fit into that mold that they're very much accepting of. And honestly, the way I think about it is like, you know, I'm not gonna create problems in my head if they don't need to exist there.
Yeah.
I feel like it's an elephant in the room. It's more like I've left the room. I don't know, like you know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree.
And it's sad because not everyone has that, you know.
Like,
Because it's like,
of course,
Annie, what you don't know won't hurt you.
it's like,
It is one of those things that as teenagers gave us a ton of anxiety, and we remember those anxieties very well and remember helping each other through them. And then that's, I think, one thing that has been so nice to kind of grow out of together in some way or the other is just your life becomes so much easier when you are in a position where you're able to just not care as much. And I don't think we're like 100% there, but we're a long way from where we were like 6-7 years ago.
Yeah, 100%. It's like, it's so different now. And I think it's mutual. Like, you know, I've grown, obviously, and to my parents, I have grown, and I'm different to them, and they're different to me now, and it's a mutual thing.
I think honestly a huge part of it has to do with you know, we graduated, we got jobs, we're making our own money, there's a level of independence. But in terms of also like the disconnect, like the past year I've been thinking a lot about women specifically in my family, and now that I'm thinking about it, it probably applies to men as well. Yani, sometimes we go through painful or traumatic things and we can't even talk to our family about them. And so that's an experience, for example, that I had last year where I felt very, it's like an isolating feeling. Obviously, you have your friends to speak to.
Yeah.
We kind of grow up taking for granted the fact that there are certain things you just don't talk to your family about. And it's interesting because you grow up and you realize you're not the only girl that's been through this. Like your mom's probably been through this, your grandma's probably been through this, your aunts, you know, your female cousins, like everyone probably has like some shit they've gone through that nobody else knows about because it's too taboo to speak about. And it's interesting because maybe, or like relevant to the conversation, because a lot of it has to do with heartbreak or, you know, whatever it is. It's messed up, and على القليلة احنا يعني we can talk to each other, and we are growing up in a different generation where at least you'll see reinforcement like with your friends and online and on Twitter or Tumblr or whatever it is, but like they didn't have that, you know. And so it makes you, for me at least, makes me a lot more like sympathetic to
100%
in general. Going back to like shaping ideas of love growing up in my family, is it wasn't a very like intimate experience, unless it's like me and my mom. Like I always grew up hugging my mom or whatever, but like I can count on one hand like the number of times I've hugged my dad, and it's something that mattered to me so much. And it doesn't anymore because like I'm realizing not every display of love or affection has to be the way I think it needs to be. Like, and this is like the most stereotypical thing, but it's something that happens, and it's something that my dad does. Like if I mention something about بطيخ وتاني يوم بيجيب لي like نص كيلو بطيخ, like that's love, you know what I mean? Like Yeah, and it's this very like Arab dad thing, like I'm gonna buy you tons of fruit, and if that's like that's awesome, and yani,
It's
there's people who
heartwarming.
don't have that, you know,
Yeah. Mm.
and they have like the physical intimacy aspect, and that's like fine. I'm, like happy to take love in whatever form it comes, you know. But I think it's always worth trying, because there were things that I thought I could never ever like bring up to my mom, for example, but then this past year we had like a big breakthrough and talked about a bunch
Yeah.
of things that I never thought I would be able to. I never thought she'd even like listen, you know. And maybe not everyone will be so lucky. And I know that, for example, there are things I will never like talk to my dad about, and that's just like it's fine. I don't need to. I think everyone should like test the waters when they get to a certain level of being a little bit more independent, a little bit more grown up. I feel like that disconnect gets smaller as you grow up.
The disconnects between me and my elders. I think the whole thing of like the mold, you know, just sometimes they want me to be a certain colors, like I have to be that way, and to them wanting that for me is a form of intimacy. To me, it's the opposite. It's like it's violent to me. So that's the big disconnect, you know. But then for me, it's always like understandable, as frustrating as it feel, when they want to impose their mold onto me. As much as I like get frustrated and everything, I just think to myself, but they want to do this for me because they love me, and not because they want to restrict me or something, you know, to a
Yeah,
certain extent. Or so I tell myself.
yeah.
But to them, that's the form of love.
I think yani, a big part of the reason we're both maybe comfortable taking a lot of that like restriction and whatever is on some level we both know that it's temporary, and that at some point we're gonna get out and do whatever the fuck we want. I think um, if we both thought that that this is it, خلاص, we're stuck kind of like this, then it would be a lot more
Difficult, yeah.
difficult.
Yeah.
Throughout quarantine, what is something you've consciously or subconsciously begun to unlearn?
That I don't need to do a lot of things to enjoy things, to enjoy life. You know, عادي. Honestly, the biggest like revelation, there were two. One is my family is not that bad. Alhamdulillah, yani. It turned out for me to be this experience again, like very blessed and very grateful for that. And the second one is that it's okay if I waste a day in bed. Like, so what? You know, like sometimes. This is very conditional to, you know, being within the system and being, you know, having a salary and being able to enjoy a day like that, of course. But yeah, I think that's one of them, off the top of my head. What
I
about you?
definitely, my family is not that bad is definitely one of those things. Especially during like the very beginning of lockdown where there was like no going out at all. Um, yeah, I don't know. I just started spending a lot of time with them every day, and I thought it was going to be terrible, but it was actually really nice, and I kind of missed it afterwards. Yani, we were all just in the living room like 24 ساعة, and it was like a vibe. And I brought my like work desk. I took it out of my room and I put it in the living room so that when I was like working from home, I was still like around my family. Yeah, it was a nice moment, and I learned to appreciate them a lot more. Another thing I learned, I had a very uh, particular quarantine, I guess, experience. I was very not in good shape going into it, and I don't want to say like that I unlearned things during quarantine, but that's when I started to unlearn a bunch of things. I learned the importance of my family, like number one. Number two, I learned that like your family and your friends are enough to make you happy. And I learned that nothing lasts forever, and that's not a bad thing. It doesn't need to be a bad thing. There is always, I don't know, like I had a really, really, really difficult time, and I came out of it okay. And that just prepares you for so much stuff down the line. And so it was really important for me. And I feel like miles and miles away from the person I was like a year ago. Totally different.
I see it. Yeah.
That's good.
What is something that you've given yourself permission to feel recently?
Happy. Happy and like chill. I was very anxious. Yeah, no, I was like very kind of wallowing in my misery for a very long time, and I didn't want to let myself even like begin to think about the fact that, you know, things can be okay and you can be happy and like all this stuff. I've also allowed myself to like have really shit days, but like go through them knowing that it's gonna be fine. I've also learned to not beat myself up about wasting time. You need to like, you know, marinate in your hoodie for a week, then you do that, and then you have a good week the next week. Like it's fine. Like, there's things I'm not letting myself feel, and one of those things is guilt. No more of that.
Crazy you're saying this, because I was about to say that. Because I feel like sometimes for no reason I'll feel guilty for something ما خصني, like it's absolutely none of my business. What helps is telling myself that if you're feeling guilty, you're being selfish and you're making this about you. So like shut up and sit down.
Yeah.
Like if you can help. If you can, don't make it about you.
Yeah.
Don't make this about like how, you know, I feel bad, so I need to make it better, you know, and like, خلاص, stop.
One of my favorite things I've seen on the internet recently, I don't remember where I saw it, Twitter or Instagram or something, was like the difference between guilt and shame. Guilt is very self-serving. Like shame is about accountability for other people. Guilt is something that it is about like making something about yourself. What have you learned from me that's changed you for the better?
To not bullshit myself, be real with myself. Like if I'm corny about something, if I'm like the kind of person who likes like lame things or whatever, accept it, you know, it's fine. And many other things, but this is just an example about this in particular. It's very, very like crucial. Yeah. What about you?
One thing I've learned from you is to like not accept treatment that is not appropriate for me from other people, which maybe is kind of like the same thing. I feel like the whole no bullshit thing is like maybe something we encouraged each other to do just naturally, like throughout the course of our life. Another thing that I picked up on you from you like heavily was attention to detail. In terms of a very specific one is like in terms of like giving gifts, like
Oh my God,
giving process, but I learned it from you.
I mean, this is unrelated, but I really admire how articulate you are with this, like describing your thoughts, because I don't know how to do that. I'm like really bad at talking.
Yeah, I feel like I am too. Like,
Oh my gosh. Your research papers probably were not confusing like mine.
whole like language thing. So I feel like hanging out with you has helped me a lot with my Arabic. So like when we first moved here, my Arabic was really, really shit. I was not comfortable speaking out loud in any capacity. And then going to school helped change that a lot. But after school, when I wasn't speaking to anybody in Arabic ever, because I mean, senior year, we moved schools and everyone was speaking English, and then university happened. And I was never comfortable speaking Arabic with my family because I hadn't done it for so long, so at some point I just became too shy too. And so you were that like connection for me.
I can say the opposite about you, by the way.
For like the English.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What have I made you realize about yourself or the world?
One thing you've helped me realize about myself is, I mean, I tend to, or maybe I used to like have this kind of mentality where if I wanted to approach something, I'd find like many excuses not to do it because I had this like fear of failure or like feeling that I couldn't do certain things or achieve certain things. And there's a lot of like support from your end, and it's not bullshit. It's not like, oh no, like blah, blah. It's like you kind of like lay out things as they are and make it very obvious to me that the thing is like achievable, and I'm just like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
So that's something that you've helped a lot with, and I try to think about it that way whenever I want to do like a thing. It's like you kind of just go and like do the thing.
What do you treasure about our friendship?
The level of honesty that we have, first and foremost, but we're always like in sync.
Yeah, by the way, it's so nice. Yeah.
It's really nice. Yeah, and then even when there's like a disconnect, like we work through it, or it's like not a big deal. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just really glad that I have that with someone.
Me too. It's really nice. Like sometimes I don't have to say things. It just already makes sense.
Exactly, and exactly, like sometimes I don't have to say the thing, and like you say it, and it's like khalas, okay.
Yeah, it's like, yep, it's been said.
It's been
I
said.
don't need to say it, like.
How is our Palestinianness the same and different? That's a cool question. Like you grew up here your whole life. I moved here when I was 15. I'm sorry. I moved here 15 years ago. And so that's kind of like automatically creates this like different experience of growing up being Palestinian. I guess the main thing was, for me at least, like speaking Arabic was something I really wasn't comfortable with. I don't know, maybe, I mean, obviously language is not like the only thing or like the most important thing about being Palestinian, but just to kind of have that connection of feeling like Arab in general. Yeah, I don't know, working on my language was, or maybe not having access to the language. I mean, it's not like like I always understood Arabic fine. I was just shy and like kind of mkassar and like shway and like all these things, and they didn't have special Arabic class in my school, so like they just threw me into the normal Arabic class. At every test, every exam, every whatever, I would just like sit there and cry because I couldn't even understand the question. Like I could read it, I knew what the letters were, but I don't understand. It's not registering, you know?
Yeah.
But I'm glad that they didn't have special Arabic, because being forced into that is what helped me down the line.
But it's a difficult language as well, you know, like no matter how Arab you are, it's hard to catch up to it.
My main idea of Palestinian and Palestinianness and what it means to Palestinian is my grandfather, my Allah yarhamu, my mom's dad, who was like this super articulate, like musaqqaf, you know, started teaching at 17, came from a family of teachers, had, you know, stacks on stacks on stacks of books. My mom's side of the family is a lot more, you know, like very assertive about their Palestinianness more than my dad's side. So my dad's side, it's less احنا فلسطينيين and more like احنا من جريش, like it's more about their village. But you know, my grandfather on my mom's side was very involved in politics and like PLO and diplomacy and like all of this stuff. He named his daughter Palestine and like
the best thing,
all that stuff. Yeah, he was the one that really like kind of asserted my identity. He would like sit me down and give me like drawing assignments, and it was like Kharidat Palestine or like some other thing, or he would also like, cut out newspaper clippings of articles and like mail them to me even after we moved here. Yeah, so I mean, I'm mentioning all of this because we were speaking about language, and he was so articulate and so good with his words.
How are we the same? I think our enthusiasm. But I feel like we're both very invested in the topic. We love to talk about it. We love to indulge in it and you know, be informed. وهيك. Different. I definitely feel like you know way more. I'm so into the politics and like the problems, and you love to like get into the art and like the culture and هيك. And I think that's really nice. And I love that. There's also the fact that I'm half Syrian. ففي أشياء يعني مثلا my dialect it's a mess between Palestinian and Syrian. I'm always half. I have no problems with it. I'm not insecure about it. I'm very proud to be from both. But I'm just saying like this is a difference there because the food we eat sometimes very mildly different, you know. The way you guys can make some things is different from the way we make some things.
Yeah, we always have that like انتوا بتعملوها. I think the most recent one we had was like فطاير سبانخ بتحطوا فيها صنوبر, right?
Yes,
Which we don't do.
You have to.
We have to. By the way, like whenever there's like a difference with food, it's usually just that if it's halabi, it's just like elevated. This is like 10 times better.
I'm not gonna lie, yeah, like it has to be that way.
Yeah.
It has to be the halabi way with food, okay.
Yeah.
What do you think we don't see eye to eye on? I don't think there's a lot of stuff. You have a wider range of music taste than me. Like that's the only thing I can think of.
Okay, but it's healthy. Like it's good that there's one thing.
Alhamdulillah, yani. Who in your life do you feel can be the most vulnerable with?
You.
Yeah.
Two people. You and maybe I won't mention like the other person in this video. Another very close friend.
Yeah. Yeah, for me it's you and Bashir. With my family, I find a revelation I had during quarantine. I love to act tough in front of them and not act sensitive because I worry that I'll worry them. So I don't like to be vulnerable in front of them. And that goes for my friends that are not you or Bashir. Yeah.
I feel like you also had to, like I've felt where there were some moments where maybe you're so used to doing it around your family that you kind of automatically do it around us as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. I've done it in front of you, for sure. But sometimes it's situational. يعني مثلا مرات, okay, you know, I don't have time to cry right now. I have a curfew. مثلا يعني. You know, or something like that. Yeah.
We got time. We got
we got all the time to cry.
What about you has felt repeatedly misunderstood by others, if anything?
I actually have an answer to that, but I hate the answer. I think like silence. And I'm not talking like, oh, if someone asks me something and I'm silent. No, like on my Instagram, you know, the fact that I don't talk much. You know, like sometimes I get messages and they're like, why aren't you مثلا, you know, talking about Palestine or talking about this or that? Yeah. And like that's something that really bothers me because it's something I can really leverage and do something with. But I'm too scared.
Yeah, I mean, there's this thing with Palestinians, especially around the world, who give people who live in the Khalij a lot of shit. And I don't think they realize the extent of the risk and the danger that comes with posting or talking about certain things, especially if you're like a high profile person or you have a large following. I don't know if this is like relevant, but I'm really shy and quiet sometimes and people think I'm like being a bitch, but I'm not. I received that comment a lot less recently, like I've kind of come out of my shell a little bit, but especially during uni, it's something I got a lot from a lot of people. They're like, oh, like you're so nice, I thought you hated me. I was like, why would I
Yeah,
hate
I remember you telling me all of this. Yeah. Okay, how do you describe me to others? Yikes. I don't. I don't like that.
I don't know. She's my friend and she's pretty cool. She's awesome. Like,
That's
well,
cute.
like for real, like that's what I would tell someone, or that's what I tell people when they ask. What is a personality trait you've inherited from your parents that you'd like to keep or let go of?
I think like being caring, because my parents are very caring, you know, and it comes very naturally from them. And sometimes it's surprising. It's like, wow, like this is so nice. You guys are actually nice people, you know. You're not just because you're my parents, and even to others, you guys go out of your way to help others. It's something I really want to be able to do, and I'm seeing it more and more. That's one thing. Let go of. I think like being impatient. Both my parents, they lose their temper quickly in certain things. Like they get agitated.
My parents do also. It's
Yeah,
so easy إنهم يتنرفزوا over like nothing. And I
yeah.
definitely inherited that to some extent. That's one
Mm,
thing I want to let go of.
same. I hate it. I hate it.
Not good. One thing I want to keep is they're always very like well prepared for things. They think ahead. They plan really well. Maybe that's like a side effect of all of their anxieties.
It's also a side effect of being like Palestinian مترحل, you know?
For sure, a lot of the anxiety and a lot of the planning ahead comes from like displacement and being moved around so many times and like passport issues and trying to get a passport and like all of that
Yeah.
shit. Yeah, I feel like with Palestinian parents in general, especially if it's a generation that remembers leaving. I remember like whenever we'd go through borders or TSA or whatever it was, any type of situation like that, they'd just be like, okay, like hold your breath until we get through. And
Yeah.
things are a lot different now, but that kind of stays with them no matter where we're traveling. Like even if we're just going on vacation somewhere, they still have like stop talking, like we're in the line. I'm like, why? Like they're like we're allowed to speak. Like,
That's the American experience.
yeah, so yeah, they're two very nervous people sometimes when they don't have to be, and I completely understand why.
What do you think self-love looks like to your parents?
I don't think our parents understand the concept of self-love. To be honest, we have it as a concept, and they don't. Maybe my mom more so than my dad. She's like on Instagram and she follows these like wisdom, like like mom type of things.
So funny.
Those like inspirational quotes, like yeah, like do this and let go of that and like all this.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. Oh my God.
so maybe my mom has a little bit of that, and she's definitely learned over the past couple years to like stop giving a shit and stop caring what people think, and that's helped her a lot. And I've seen her change dramatically. She learned what self-love is and she learned how to like implement it. I think my dad is still like it's just so far conceptually, and for men in general it's just not, especially for,
100%.
for older men. It's what the fuck is self-love? What do you mean? Like
To my parents, self-love is like perfecting that cup of coffee الصبح وبيسمعوا لفيروز وهن رايحين على الشغل where like they hate it. You know? Um,
so it's like small indulgences. I think that's how my dad
exactly. Small treats in life that make your day slightly better. But I don't think they realize that it could be something, it could be bigger and عادي.
I don't
You can
think they
enjoy
would relate it to like, for example, their mental health or like their
it.
outlook on life.
But my dad has this like appreciation of things that make you happy and how important they are. I just don't think they understand that they can do more of that.
Hmm.
What do you think self-love looks like?
Not indulging sometimes and thinking of long term rather than short term happiness, or
Yeah.
long term happiness rather than like short term relief. I don't think self love is like easy. It takes a lot
No.
of discipline. and it takes a lot of like telling yourself no about certain things. Maybe setting yourself up for like getting what you want and like achieving what you want is sometimes the better way to go. So that takes like discipline, and it's something I'm still like not good at. It's hard, and like sometimes you can't concentrate, and sometimes you just want to like lie in bed or like not do shit. It's not like this maybe like romantic idea that everyone has. It's more like being stern with yourself.
For me, what does self-love look like? Not lying to yourself is very important. Like if you suck at something, accept it. And if you want to make it better, make it better. عادي. For me personally, it's being in the sun. Just being out in the sun and in the greenery. Something that has to do with nature just makes me feel so much better. What's the greatest relationship advice you've received from me?
I think you made it very clear to me at a certain point that I shouldn't put all my, what's the phrase, like put all your eggs in one basket, or like make your happiness like solely dependent on one person. That's something I definitely keep with me. You told me it and I knew it was right, but I still didn't believe it and I didn't want to. But then as time passes, you know, you have to learn it yourself. And I think a lot of advice works that way. Is like we can give each other advice, but it's less of like, okay, I told you this thing and now everything is okay. It's more of like a thing to look back at in the future once you've arrived at that point.
For me, it wasn't advice, it was a conversation we had, and then you said something that stuck with me. Nothing really is constant and everything changes, and people go through phases and things, and they change their minds about stuff, and that's very normal.
In what ways do you think you give love?
Definitely material. I think like assurance, like giving assurance, making sure the other person like feels comfortable next to me. But sometimes, this is more recently, I've been thinking that that might make people less comfortable.
I think same. I like to like do stuff for people. I like giving. That's a big one. And I like just talking to people.
What have you learned about love through our relationship as friends?
Love doesn't have to come from a romantic relationship. Like romance is nice. I'm not like, obviously it's like great, but it's not the only thing that will make you feel like whole and like complete as a person.
This was nice.
Love you.
Love you too. Take care. See you.